Oh man, it's about that time. Dr.
Was that
Aditi
a,
Paul. Dr. Aditi Paul is here with us today. We're talking about collegiate hookup culture, or at least one part of it's going to be about that.
wait, I wanted to ask you, was that a shout out to Lizzo?
Shout out. Yeah, of course.
I mean, whenever I hear it's about damn time, I'm automatically singing the next line, which is not good.
And well,
But
listen,
that's where my mind is.
there, I'm older. I'm a little bit older. There's also more to that than just the Lizzo stuff. I mean,
Listen, I mean, it's a sad realization how old we have become, especially
yeah,
when you have to enter your birthday and then you keep scrolling through the years because it was
yeah.
very close to that wheel, but then I'm like, I'm scrolling a little bit more than I want to, but it's okay. We're here,
It's
we're
okay.
young,
It's
we're
okay.
young.
You know that part when you're like, and they give you the age range, and you're like, I've moved into that age range now.
I
Like,
know.
what the hell?
I know, but then like the upper bound of that age range is so high, but then you just have to keep moving on. But you know what? We are healthy, we are happy. We beat a freaking pandemic.
Yep.
So bring on the old age. I'm
Let's
happy to
bring it
take
on.
it.
Yeah, let's bring it on. We're about to bring on some serious topic action here. And Dr. Tara, big shout out, Dr. Tara, for
She's the best.
she's the best, referring me to Aditi, who's I love your background and the topic you talk about. I think is very fascinating. But before we get
Thank
to
you.
that, let's talk about how you got into academia and the whole deal. Let's go backwards, then we'll go forward.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. You are not going to get a good story out of me. I
That's
am not
okay.
one of those. I knew it in my bones that I'm going to be a doctor someday.
Uh,
Absolutely not. Can we cuss on your show?
yeah, you can say whatever you. I mean, Dr. Tara was on here. All these people.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, the standard, the bar is pretty low.
I mean, you can say whatever you want.
No, so I wanted to quit studying, and I say this all the time. I wanted to quit studying after 12th grade, but my body was not ready. My mind was not ready to go into a 9 to 5. It's still not ready, to be honest. Thank God for remote work. So I just didn't want to get out of that school experience. So here I was after doing my bachelor's and master's, and I'm originally from India. I just didn't know what to do. So I visited my sister in the US, and she was a big proponent of come to the US. Like her patriotism toward the US is kind of concerning, to be honest with you. And I'm like, are you low key a part of Proud Boys? Like, tell me now.
Yeah,
So
let's get this out in the open.
just like I'm like, listen, this is way too much red, blue, and green for me. So red, blue, and white. But because of her, I went and talked with a couple of professors in University of Michigan, and I told them, "Hey, I got my bachelor's and master's in computer science, but I really want to do something in communication studies. Can I make that jump?" Because you're kind of pigeonholed, right? Like if you choose something when you're 18 and you just keep doing that. So in my head, I was like, I'm doomed to be in computer science for days now. But professors were like, no, this is great. You can come here. And that's how I started my PhD journey. And one thing led to the other. And I didn't want to push myself. So I went to the lowest hanging fruit when you're in academia. That is, after you get your PhD, you become a professor. That's what I did.
Mhm.
And currently, I am a professor. Not too sure how long I'm going to be a professor, but I am. I've loved my time in academia. It's given me a space to explore subjects because I was curious about them. And one of them just happened to be hookup culture because my college students kept talking about hookup, hookup. And I'm like, what in the hey is hookup, man? Like, what is this? I mean, and I know English is not my first language, but I was like, I am not that much of an alien to not understand
Yeah.
a simple word. There's got to be something underneath that. So just like any other chronic nerd would do, I launched a whole study
Chronic
about it.
nerd.
I'm just chronically nerdy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I did. I just launched a whole study, and before you know it, there is a book out, and I'm on Dr. Darian Parker's podcast talking about it.
That's what I'm talking about. All right. So I know there's a lot. You sent me a lot of information ahead of time, and the
Yeah.
stats were just dizzying.
Yeah.
about this. So let's go high level first.
Mhm.
What are the kind of macro themes we know about collegiate hookup culture based off of the data?
Yeah. I mean, let me ask you this. Have you like moved from the place you were born to some other place, and when you moved to this other place, you had some preconceived notions about that place?
Yes, for
I'm asking
sure.
you.
For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
So take me through that journey. What was that journey like?
Well, I grew up in a military family, so I moved like my entire life.
Oh, wow.
And so everything like for instance, like I live in Washington State right now.
Hmm.
And when I got married, my wife and I were like, there's several places we were never considering to live. Washington
Mm.
State was one of those. We live in Washington State. I'm like, but
But why,
because
why did you say that you didn't want to go to Washington State?
you know why? Because I just had never, I had lived all over the world, but I had never been to the Pacific Northwest. And everybody
Mhm.
told me, oh, it rains all the time and it's
Right.
dark and gray. And there's an element of that to truth to that, but it's not the full truth. It's not.
Yeah.
And so, like, my lack of exposure to this part of the country automatically formed an opinion that was not fully true based
Yeah.
off of what people told me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's happened a couple of times in my life.
Right. So let's just use that framework, and let's try to understand hookup culture, because that's exactly what it is. That is, when you have not been immersed in a particular environment, our idea of that place comes from what we have heard and what we have seen in the media. We have a perception of that, and we think that that's going to be the entire truth. Not really. When you step in, you understand that, wait a minute, like it's not what I thought it's going to be. But that perception is always there, and you're fighting against that confirmation bias if you're talking in psychology terms. So in the same way, when you're thinking about American colleges, our expectation is that there's going to be a party, and there's going to be a lot of drinking, and there's going to be a lot of weed, and there's going to be a lot of experimentation. And college students step into this playground thinking that they are also supposed to do this to fit in. So there's something called pluralistic ignorance that happens, which is everybody thinks something is happening, and everybody's convinced each other that this is happening, but in reality it's not happening. But we keep up this notion that it's happening, and we participate in that, right? So that's how hookups have worked in college campuses. That is, you come into college campuses and you're thinking everybody is having sex. And research has shown that over 75% of college students overestimate the number of sexual partners that their friends have, when their friends are just like us, like in their basement doing a literature review and trying to figure out what the fuck APA is. But we think that we are all having sex and we are being flagrant, so we play into that. So even if we don't want to hook up, sometimes we hook up because we think other people are hooking up, and hence the propagation of what we call the hookup culture. So hookup culture is not everybody having sex, it's the expectation that I need to have sex or I need to experiment when I'm stepping into a college environment. A lot of students, maybe even a majority of students, don't do that, but some of them do. And I wanted to prove through this book that hookups, just like love, just like dating, is not a catch-all. There are nuances to it. It differs by where you met your partner. It differs by the kind of relationship that you have, like same sex, opposite sex, your gender, if you are academic or career minded or not, if you are Latina or non-Latina. All of these factors will tweak or shapeshift the way you experience hookup culture. It's not a catch-all.
Is fascinating, right? I mean, it's like when I talked to Dr. Tara and she was saying, most people are not having a lot of sex.
Yeah.
And college students, although very open to discussing sex and sexuality, are some of the least sexual people in the
That's
United
exactly
States,
right.
which I found just like, boom.
You know what? It shouldn't be, though. You know why? Because United States as a country, thinking about, like, let's talk about intercultural aspects. I'm seeing my nephew, by the way, like,
Okay.
I'm visiting my sister right now. My nephew's 13 years old, and I'm very curious because he's peak Gen Z, right? Like,
Right.
we're kind of like on the fringes of Gen Z. Like, he is core Gen Z. And I asked him the other day that, yo, like in middle school, I was looking at his yearbook. He's in Michigan. Shocking number of Indian kids, by the way. I'm like, is this America? Like, what is happening? So, and he's Indian. I'm Indian. I'm like, okay, diversity, hello, great stuff. And then the racial diversity kind of piqued my interest, and I told him, hey, like, do kids talk about like LGBTQ things? And he's like, oh yeah, this person is LGBT, that person is LGBT, that person is LGBT.
Yeah.
It's almost become uncool to be straight.
Right. I've seen this. My daughter
yes.
talks about this a lot. She's like 11 almost. I'm like,
can you imagine like that? So like the idea that we have in our head is, because when you're talking about LGBTQIA plus or being straight or being gay, you're talking about sexual preference, right? Like, who are you attracted to? And the openness to having these conversations, of course, has opened up, but that fools us into believing that, oh, just because I'm talking about sexual preference, that means I'm talking about sex.
Yeah.
Not really. The United States as a country, just like a lot of other Western countries, are individualist oriented countries. You're thinking about yourself more than you're thinking about the community. You're very, very navel gazy almost. So right now the focus has become so me-centered. That is, I want to curate my identity. I want to know my pronouns. I want to know my sexual preference. And that doesn't have to be through having a sexual experience. You're exploring yourself. So talking about sex or talking about sexual preference does not have to do so much about experiencing them. It's almost about self-actualization for these kids. For us, it was like, sex for us was like buffet, right? I mean, you go try it out and they're like, okay, I fuck with this, I don't fuck with this. And that's how you realize. We didn't stop and think like, oh, this is maybe, we retroactively realized it. But for a lot of these Gen Zers who are coming up, like, because of the openness, thanks to previous generations and also these generations pushing forward, their experience of sexual orientation is more from an individualist self-exploration side of the story rather than sexual curiosity.
I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, it really is, because like you said, I mean, I'm 44 and it just,
you don't look like 44. What kind of vitamins are you on?
Hold on. Take a
okay, Dr. Parker.
Recognize. Come on.
Listen, what is that retinoid? Tell me about it.
No, I'm not in the Gen Z millennial population. I'll take it way back here.
I mean,
Gen X.
You know what? Okay, tell me this, because I'm millennial. Gen X was so furious. They've always, you guys stay bitter toward millennials. I don't know. My sister is a Gen X. They're like, millennials are such attention whores. Like, we just came in and we co-opted everything. So Super Bowl 2022, the entire vibe was Gen X, but then millennials just claimed that it's our time to shine. And Gen X did not fuck with that. Like, they were so bitter.
Well, you know, we have a weird generation, Gen X, because like we were just like left alone a lot.
Yeah.
And they called us the slacker generation. Like, I don't know. I'm not a slacker. I mean, I was like, but again, it's like you stereotype a generation based off of like, right. And so now we're stereotyping sex and hookups for that. And that is fascinating to me because, you know, a lot of people think generally like, oh, these people are young. They're like 18 to 20 something. They must be banging everything.
No.
Like, and it's not happening.
Far from it.
It is like literally, first of all, what's funny is in the United States, a lot of people who are not in college aren't doing that either, by the way.
That's right.
Like, so it's like a sex drought happening.
It's they have so much to like figure out. I mean, there's two sides to these, right? Like, we can make this gritty. Like, for example, let's talk about racism, right? I mean, previous generations, we've all experienced racism. We've all had to work through these. But now the openness of conversation around racism is so open, and it's opening up, where it's upon us to like process it psychologically. versus our generation, we lived in delusion. We lived in ignorance. And ignorance was kind of blissful for us, let's be honest, where we were not like burdened with having an opinion and putting it front and center and knowing exactly who we are. Because there was no documentation, there was no internet, we kind of fucked around and made mistakes, and we're not always thinking, how is this, what implication does this have for my future self? But this generation, like, because of their hyper connectivity, they're so their brain works differently, right? Like everything seems to be their problem, and everything is so permanent for them. This makes this generation extremely anxious, and that's exactly what I found, that the dating anxiety, just anxiety toward dating, is so high among college students.
Really?
That people, the higher your dating anxiety, the less likely you are to escalate sex. So people who had higher dating anxiety just kept it to like touchy-feely, free, like, frisky type of behavior. But the lower your dating anxiety, the more chances you have of like escalating the sexual behavior to something that is higher.
What's the dating, like, explain dating anxiety? Like, I feel like I kind of understand, but like, I think for the listener, they're like, dating, like the fear of rejection, like what is it?
Yeah. So dating anxiety is, I will pull this up for you because I have the this dating anxiety, I asked them 6 questions and I'm like, okay, these are the 6 statements, how much do you agree with them? So some of those statements were, I often feel nervous when talking to an attractive member of the opposite or same sex. I'm usually nervous going on a date with someone for the first time. It is difficult for me to relax when I'm with a member of the opposite or same sex who do I not know very well. I feel tense when I'm on a date with someone. I feel nervous in dating situations. I become tense and jittery when I feel that someone of the opposite or same sex is checking me out. So these are like, they don't know what to do with it. And think about us for a second, right? When we were 18 or 19, we were hormonal, but we were also dumb. Like we were not confident. We have learned through our mistakes. We are not born being lionesses and like kings on bed. Like we learned that, and it comes from having experienced those things, having experienced enough sexual escapades, if I may say so. So it's stupid and it's naive for us to think that something might have happened between me, my generation, and Gen Z, that they are a complete different species. We evolve really slow, like human beings. It's a miracle that we're still alive. We're pretty dumb.
I agree with that.
We're pretty dumb as a species. Like we still want to like put our hand on a stove when we know that it's hot. Like make it make sense. So like it's absurd for us to think that somehow the generation that is coming after us have like morphed into these like goddesses of self-confidence just because they're talking about sex. No, the conversation has opened up. Their evolution as sexual beings is just like ours. They're learning through the process.
It's so interesting. Like, do you think their dating anxiety is the same as like ours was, or is it just so much different in the sense because the information highway is so big and the ability to just talk about sexuality is so much different? I don't know.
I think okay, the way it makes sense for us is talking about marriage to millennials and to an extent Gen Xers. For us, marriage is a big deal, right? At least I can talk about millennials. Like, marriage is a big deal for me. I am not flippant about marriage. Like, it is a lifetime commitment.
I agree.
But talk about generations 30, 40, 50 years before, when they had to get into a relationship, the only way that was possible was through marriage. Like there was no exploratory phase. Right? So marriage was that significant in our books. What marriage was for us, dating is for them. Because there are so many exploratory steps that they take even before going on a date, that the importance of dating has increased. right? So that's what has happened, because think about the trajectory that people follow nowadays. Like, you're possibly meeting this person face to face if you're meeting them in a class, but you are developing that relationship online. You're texting them, you're Snapchatting them, you're Instagramming them. Then you have to go from Instagram blue bubble to the green bubble, now indicating that you're close to them. Do they know your Finsta, right? Are they doing a soft launch on their Insta stories? Now are you a hard launch? Now are you in their bio? So there are so many checks and balances before you even make it serious, that the seriousness of the final step, which was very flippant to us, has now become of extreme importance to them. So going on a date is not the first step. It is the culmination of a lot of steps that has happened to them.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing at this. It just feels like so many walls to be put up. Like, it's
so many,
just
right?
A date shit, man. It's just
I know. It's like that's what older generations tell us, right? Like, it's just marriage. You will figure it out as you go. And I'm like, no, grandma, I'm not fucking with that. Like,
I agree with that part. I mean, you don't just jump into a marriage. There's too much of that.
Just replace marriage with a date. Then you'll understand how their brain works, right?
It's kind of crazy though. It's kind of like they have way more ways to connect in many ways. Like I used to remember, like, before I've been married 18 years, it's been awesome. But like before, when I was dating, it was actually hard, because like you actually had to talk to somebody and you didn't really have other ways to meet them.
Yeah.
Like, you had to be like, well, maybe they'll show up across the quad and I'll see them or something. Like, it was like hard to actually connect with the person.
Yeah.
And then email came around and then nobody was using it really in the beginning. It was like, now it's like everybody has access to everybody. Like,
that's right.
It would be so much easier for me back in the day.
Yeah.
Had all these access points, and it wouldn't have made it that hard, honestly.
Yeah. Yep. And that's right. I love the fact that you've brought the idea of access. Like, we're so accessible to each other right now.
Yeah.
So like the gravity or the intimacy of connection is cheapened almost. Like, everybody's so accessible. So like going on a date becomes an exclusive affair. Heck, like giving them your number is like almost raw dogging them, right? I mean, it's literally that. Like, you have my number, when versus if you have my Instagram, you know more about me, but that's a public platform. Right. If I give you my number, then I'm giving you access to something that is just mine. Not everybody has access to that. So the in their minds, a date has become a lot more significant than for us. We're just used to going on dates. So in that way, I would say that the dating anxiety has increased.
Man, it feels just, however, I feel like everybody's progressing in a way that it works for them, and that's good. But on some level, I worry about that. If like you get that worked up about dating, you know what I mean? It's just like, there's really nothing on the line, honestly. With marriage, there's a lot on the line. I get that. I get this is like the legal aspect of it.
That's
there's the long term.
That's right.
But the dating is like, and now it's weird because they have so many dating apps. You can go on a date every day. Yeah. Like, if you wanted to. Like, it was like a miracle to get a date back in the day like this, because it was so hard. You had to work hard for it.
That's right. It's and millennials were like that. I've talked about this in another podcast where I'm like, we are the taint generation. We're neither here nor there, because we know a time without technology, and we also know a time with technology. It's like, you are like, millennials to the internet were like kids in a chocolate factory. Like, we just didn't know what the fuck was happening. We just took it all. And for us, like, Tinder. I didn't know how to do this in high school when I needed it, but now that I'm in college, let's go with a date with everybody. And in comes Gen Z, who's born into this. They're digital natives versus digital immigrants like us. They're like, like, I know I have TikTok, I know I have a bottomless of everything, but I'm going to go on Discord and I'm going to use technology to foster relationships that I already have. I'm not going to give access to everybody. That's what I'm seeing in my nephews, by the way.
Interesting.
Or my nieces, that they're so used and they have seen millennials do the cringiest shit ever. And it's almost like rebelling against the generation that has come before us to individualize ourselves. So Gen Z is all about authenticity because they have seen millennials just fuck it all up.
I agree with that, actually.
In terms of like hashtag new home who it is, like they no, like we're not about perfectionism. We're not about looking good on Instagram. Let's talk about deranged mental health issues on TikTok while wearing a pineapple suit. So that's what. You can picture it, right? That's the vibe of Gen Z, that they're so used to technology being there for them. They actually know how to use it for deepening relationships rather than.
And I like that about them on that, because like I think I once learned that like the average like Facebook user is like a 47-year-old woman.
Oh yeah, Facebook is.
It's like all typical Gen X just cocked it up big time because we didn't have it, so now we just like blow through it. Just blowing our load all over the internet and just doing whatever. Just millennials too. It's like, oh my God, life's perfect. And
God.
And the Gen Z, they're not having that shit. They're like, they're not. This is whack. Like this is like, you should be sharing all this stuff all the time. Like and I identify with them. Like, see, I'm with you on this. Like
that's right.
That's discretion.
Yeah. But you know what? Like, you know what, Gen Z. Okay, you know what, Gen Z? I see you, but like, you need to calm down. Like,
I do agree. They need to calm down. It's almost too much activism. Okay, it's like overly.
And this is coming from two people who are not white. Like when two not white people.
And it's always the white Gen Zs. They're all overly activist. It's like, just calm down.
I mean, you know what? It's not that deep. Like, it's not that deep.
Not that deep. I mean, like cheese is overvalued or something. Who cares? It's like,
oh gosh, yeah.
Oh, they love the environment, and I love the environment. And I like the energy of like, racism and environment and all this stuff and politics. Like they care a lot.
Yeah, they do care a lot.
Gotta care, but there's like a boundary to caring. You know,
but it also talk about your intent behind caring. Is it? And that's just a larger conversation. But in Gen Z, I mean, you're a scholar in psychology. Like, you know that they're going through a stage of
course,
figuring your identity out. You know, like, and we had that space of figuring ourselves out and changing ourselves. Like, I do not want to go back. Okay, you know what? Tell me this. Do you relate to what I'm about to say? That is, have you ever checked your old Facebook statuses out and you have cringed?
No, because I don't have Facebook or anything like that. I got rid of that joint a long time ago.
Oh God. I mean,
I snooped it out real early. I said, this is a bullshit platform. All this stuff is pretty much bullshit.
Let me tell you, like when Facebook is trying to be all cute and be like, oh, this was your memory from 10 years ago. I'm like, Facebook, my dude, like, don't. Because if I go back and see if I go back and see my Facebook captions, I'm like, I cannot believe I was putting this shit out into the universe. Like, I don't want to know this version. And that was just like, and that's me. That's a millennial, like, who used Facebook. Nobody uses Facebook anymore. But like Gen Zers, they are building their identity in a permanent way, like on a platform which is permanent, that'll keep their data, which gives them less room to change, right? And they're also in a place, think about high school and middle school, like we were trying so desperately to belong, and now there are so many camps. They're trying to build their identity based on these like hot takes, and that's I respect that. You have a voice. I understand that. But always like check, why am I doing this? Is it me really strengthening my values, or am I doing it to belong? And that's a conversation that Gen Z needs to have, or at least we need to bring it to the forefront. So
Gen Z, let's be honest, you're pretty stupid at that age. I mean, there's not against you, it's against me, Aditi. You're not that intelligent at that age.
Yeah,
the problem is you think you are.
Yeah,
you think you're that intelligent because you have access to all this information.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean you're intelligent. It means you have access to information. I was pretty stupid at 22.
I tried every day to not be canceled by Gen Z, but I think that I have been.
Who cares?
Yeah. Oh, you know what?
You stop caring.
The ride is turning. Oh, you know what? That is true though. The ride is turning where everybody, like Gen Z, canceled everybody so fast. Now people are like, you know what? Cancel me. See if I can.
Cancel me. I'm happy to be canceled.
Yeah, cancel me.
Yeah.
But yeah, not to be condescending toward Gen Z. Yes, you have a lot of power. At the same time, understand that you're allowed to not have an opinion, and that's okay. And that's okay. You don't have to be this uber confident, mentally ill, she, her, they, them, figuring out like sexual orientation. You can be like, okay, like you can be vanilla. Is what I'm
a dumb college student. It's okay.
Just that. Allow yourself to be that. To be that. There's tons of time left for you to be a man, a woman, or anybody in between of substance.
Yes, I respect all of the open conversation, man. I think it's a wonderful thing. But it's okay if like you're just like an idiot about a few things. Like
that's right.
You don't have to be mature now.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm still not fully mature, and I'm 44. Yes. I don't want to be fully mature. Honestly.
I know.
Really,
isn't that crazy? Like now that we're 44, or when I'm 35, but like I am nobody that I thought a 35-year-old should be. I'm like, in deep in my soul, I'm still 22. But when I hang out with 22-year-olds, I understand real fast that I'm 35.
Yeah.
But it's like we're still growing every single day. But yeah, man, like just be dumb, be ignorant.
Yeah. You don't have to have all the answers.
Give yourself, yeah, for real though. Like just take it from us.
I mean, just take it down a notch. That's all I'm saying is like, the 22-year-old me would have nothing to do with the 44-year-old me. Guarantee it.
Swear.
You're going to change so much. Right now, you're like, no, I'm going to be like this forever. I'm like,
yeah.
Just calm down.
It's also like, that's what I have realized growing up as well, that how much we like the joy of not giving a shit though.
Oh, amazing.
The joy.
Pretty joy good, right?
And I'm like, I'm still giving shits. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, the 44-year-old me would be like, you, Aditi, right there, like you're still giving a lot of shits. Like, you need to calm down even more. Like, I cannot wait to be completely like, I don't fucking care. and have that peace. And not be rattled with everything. So this conversation has gone completely to like the joys of growing old.
Well, you see, the problem though is like when people get elderly and then they don't give a shit, but then they're mean about it. I don't like that. That I never want to be, because that's like the crusty old person. The stereotypical. That I think is just so stupid.
Yeah,
like just because you lived a long time doesn't mean you could be like, oh, I've seen everything. I don't care.
That's right.
Oh, you have to have some sense of decorum.
Yeah.
Like you could also be like, hey, I've been around the block several times.
Yeah.
Oh, you're 22? Okay.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. That's true. Like your first heartbreak burns a lot more than your fifth one.
It does.
So
like a lot. I get that.
Yeah.
But it's a date, guys. Seriously, it's just a date.
All of this to say is just a date. Like, you know what? At least you'll have a good story. Like,
just block
at least you'll have a good story. And oh my gosh, absolutely. It's they need that's one moral of the story for all the spiel is it's a date. You don't have to get worried about that. And you can just be a doozy on the date, but at least go for one.
Yeah, because the marriage thing is like, man, take your time on that as much as possible. If you're not ready, And that's like the Super Bowl right there, man. Like the date is like, training camp.
Yeah. But there's another side of Gen Z where like I have 3 students who got married, and and a lot of Gen Zers in college, at least, they take a lot of pride in the fact that they are in a relationship.
That's great.
And that is again like from this angle of like they're riding against the wave. That is, oh, I am being monogamous at 24, which again is wonderful, like great, you're doing that. But at the same time, in my head, I needed my time to mature. So possibly have matured before that. But there is also that camp in Gen Z that they are committing, and they're looking to be safe with someone. Because in this world where you always have to be on the defensive and like look out, here you are with a person who's comfortable, who is in the same wavelength as you, so they're ready to commit. They don't have FOMO. They're not thinking, oh my god, like what is the next Russian roulette on Tinder going to show me? Like they know enough from previous generations that this is endless. If you find a good one, keep it. To be honest with you, Darian, like we make a big deal out of Gen Z. Besides like opening up conversations and sensitivity toward a lot of these issues, our core values about like relationships, etc., it's taking a lot of time to change from generation to generation. So I wouldn't say that Gen Z has like completely revolutionized something that we didn't know before.
Yeah. It's really, I think, I think what's so interesting is that technology is such a big part of this conversation.
That's true.
It feels like it's a huge part because, and you experienced it kind of like without the internet. I definitely experienced life without the internet for a long time, like a long time. And then when you bring this kind of beast into the equation, it creates such a different, that has been the huge difference between the generation, is the digital natives versus the people who didn't have it.
Yeah.
It is just such a huge ocean-wide difference in availability and access, like we talked about before.
Yeah.
It's like, for those of you who are younger listening to this, imagine this scenario. You see somebody, you're attracted to them, right? We still had anxiety, of course, it's like, but like you could actually look them up now and like kind of look up people. There was none of that.
Yeah.
You had to hope you ran into them. It's called a game of hope.
It's a capital H, guys.
Yeah, big H. And then if you did see them next time, it's like, oh, I gotta get the nerve to do this. Like, there was no like, let me check on them. Let me text them first. Let me do it. There was none of that. It was like,
oh my gosh, listen, you're okay. So let me give you a take off like what happened in the millennial generation. Like when you're talking about this was me in 7th grade, like derangement, where I'm sure Gen Z is not going to be this way. Like I got the internet when I was in 6th grade, and there's such a thing called Yahoo chat rooms.
Yeah, I remember
that. Does it make sense to you if I tell you ASL?
Yeah, I had the whole thing.
Yeah. So I remember going to these chat rooms. Listen, now you have like cute Snapchat avatars, but at least you know who's the person behind that avatar. Like now we are converting real people into avatars, knowing the real people. Back then we only had the avatars. And listen, Darian, I had cyber sex when I was in 6th grade. I remember that because I was like, okay, this person is like, what are you doing right now? I'm like, oh, okay, all right. Checking. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I did that when I was in 6th grade.
Yeah.
Like everything was so new. Nobody knew. It didn't come with a manual. You know what I'm saying? Like right now, as a Generation Xer or as a millennial, we are parents to these Gen Zers, some of them. So we have gone through the initial phase of the internet, and now we can tell them what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
My parents did not know shit about the internet, right? So there was nobody to parent us that, oh, don't go to these Yahoo rooms and don't just start having sex with somebody and like type it out. We did that because we didn't know any better.
No.
But like we made such dumb mistakes, and we were there was room for us to make these mistakes and recover.
Yeah.
So in essence, we were more open. But Gen Z, with like digital surveillance and this openness of conversation, they are subconsciously very aware. Like just like we parent our parents on a lot of technology, they are our parents in essence, because they know exactly what's happening. So in a way, they are more digitally mature, I would say.
That's so true. I actually had a guest one time, this is a long time ago, whose daughter was saying she was embarrassed by her mom's behavior online. She's like, you're just putting too much of your life out there. And it's like the daughter is telling the mom.
That's right.
It's like, and I was like, whoa, this is changing. Like,
this is changing a lot.
It's like, wow, the child's telling the parent, like, okay, you're using this like you're in a candy shop and you're just eating everything. And the child's like, that's not how you do it. Like, but the consequences are big though for this type of behavior. You know?
It's great, and it's always the young ones who call you out. Okay, I'm gonna push it. So yesterday I'm on TikTok as a lurker. I don't produce content on TikTok. So like this older guy, he's like 17. This is just for us to feel good about ourselves. It never ends. You know, like this old young people. Schooling older people, it never ends. So there's this 17-year-old guy who's just like trying to have like big dick energy, and he's like doing a TikTok, and his younger brother, he is like 12 years old, and he's like, oh my god, Justin, we know you're all that, you're swimming in pussy, like, can we go now?
Oh wow.
And I'm like, this guy has no chill. Like, the younger generation stays on shading you, and it doesn't matter if you're 44, if you're 35, if you're 17, you're getting shaded by the generation who's coming after you, because they're seeing the tomfoolery and the absolute ridiculousness that you're doing. It's embarrassing. It's just embarrassing.
You see somebody just putting all their business out like that, and clearly just like self-indulgent behavior, and then they're like, what are you doing? Like, don't you know people see this?
Yeah, they're so apathetic toward everything. Like, they're just no. Yeah.
So, hit me with some stats here. I want to hear some stats before we wrap this up from your research that may be interesting to the listener about Gen Z hookup culture.
Well, Gen Z hookup culture is much less sensational than what we think it is. Like, I mean, I'm going to completely date myself when I say this, that when my idea of hookups, and this is what I have seen portrayed in a lot of movies, and we see this in books as well, that hookup culture is akin to party culture, right? I mean, when you go to a college campus, you go to a party, you're doing kegs, and then guys are just being nasty, they're grinding on girls, and then the girls are also being a little being a little promiscuous. And you're having sex and you're regretting it the next day. You've caught STIs, but you've not caught feelings. And that's the vibe.
I haven't heard that one.
That's the vibe. It's not that. It's so much more chill. And more than hitting you with stats, let me hit you with some quotes, where, for example, this person who met their hookup partner through a dating app, like, how did that go? This will also tell you that they are doing something without knowing that they're doing something. And I'll tell you, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So this one person said, we met on Bumble. We decided to meet in person at a Starbucks. Afterwards, we went to a Mexican restaurant and he got his tacos. Afterwards, we went for a walk and he kissed me. We then decided to go see a movie. We made out during the movie. When the night was over, he dropped me off home and we kissed goodnight. This was when I told them, describe an instance when you hooked up with a person. This person went on a legit date, but they're considering this as a hookup. And another person, this is so chill. Like, look at this guy. We had been texting and Snapchatting every day. We set up a date. A few days later in the week, we ended up meeting at a bar before the setup date and talked for a while with each other and friends. We decided to go back to my place where we proceeded in awesome sex. It's chill, man. Like, it doesn't have to be like this sensational, I'm getting drunk and like we're just like having sloppy sex. No, it can be as chill as like you're in your dorm room, you're bored, you hit up this person, you come and chill, you really do be Netflix and chilling, and you're keeping it casual in that you're not being too forward with your emotions or intentions, but you're open to the fact that this could progress into something romantic. And that's something that Gen Z really, really, really enjoys. That is having friendships. Like, for example, one of my students, she said that, you know what, like if it has to like come to hooking up, I'd much rather hook up with somebody through a date than hooking up with a person who's a friend of a friend. Because if something doesn't work out with the hookup partner, I'm going to lose my friend. Like, think about that.
That's different.
It's they love being a part of a community. They love their friendships. They love their safe spaces. And because sex is so accessible right now, it's not a big deal for them.
That's right.
It's there. It's almost like our parents telling us about how hard it was for them to go to school. Like every day that I talk with my dad, I think him going to the school like increases by 5 kilometers. Like now he has walked over 10,000 kilometers to go to a school. And we're like, okay, like it's so accessible to us. We don't make a big deal out of it.
Right.
And it's the same for them. Like they know that they can have sex. They know that it's going to be acceptable. They know that they can be queer. Right. But they're in no rush to like redeem that coupon of becoming sexual beings. They know that it's there for the taking. And they're taking their time to explore that.
Well, that's certainly not a bad thing. I mean,
it's not a bad thing at all.
It's not a bad thing at all. It's certainly, I made a lot of jokes, but honestly, it's a good quality to take your time in most things in life. So, Dr. Aditi Paul, this has been a pleasure. It's been very pleasurable. Okay.
Awesome. Don't know how much you learned though, but like we have.
It's learning. Learning's a variable. You learn different things. I learn about you and your personality and some of your work, and that's an awesome thing. So please tell everyone where they can connect with you, your book, and the whole deal.
Please don't spend any money buying my book. That's the first thing that I'm going to tell you. My book is a research monologue of sorts. It's priced at $95. As the author of the book, I'll tell you, I haven't produced knowledge that is worth $95. It is the academic publishers who hike up the price so high. If you do want to support me, please go to my Instagram. It's I am Aditi Paul. Please go to my LinkedIn. It's Dr. Aditi Paul. And I'm a noob in Twitter, but if you want to connect with me there, I'm there as well. And again, my handle is I am Aditi Paul. Please reach out and tell me if you're a Gen Z. Tell me what your hookup culture looks like, and if you are a millennial and a Gen Xer and you have a hot take on Gen Z, let me know that too. Happy to hear your thoughts always.
Man, I am a DT Paul fan. Thank you so much.
I'm a Darian Parker fan, and I'm still holding you to the whole like skincare routine. Come on, man. Spill the beans.
I'll tell you offline.
I'll be waiting. Thank you again. It was such a pleasure to be here.
You got it. All right. Thank you so much. Until next time.